For more details, including easy-to-click links to everything that is talked about in today's program, you can visit markdillon.com. If you would like to go specifically to this episode's blog post, you can go to markdillon.com/82. That's the number 82. If you and your friend decided to get together for lunch at a brand new plant-based cafe, how you each arrived at that cafe could be greatly different depending on where you're starting from. For them, maybe they just simply take the bus and they arrive at the restaurant. But you might live halfway around the world and need to take a plane or a boat and then grab a cab and get to that destination. But ultimately, in the end, all that matters is that you're there together, and then the fun and the adventure can begin. The same is true in many ways when it comes to eating plant-based food. You may have a particular reason why you've decided to start eating this way, and your friend may have a completely different reason. But in the end, what matters is that you're both enjoying great plant-based meals. When I started this plant-based journey a couple of decades ago, it seemed that most people that I would run into were doing this for one of two reasons. It was either because of health reasons, they wanted to make a difference and they wanted to eat healthier, or they wanted to make a difference for animals. They wanted to reduce the amount of suffering that animals had to endure so that people could simply eat food. But lately, there's been a new rising up of people who are doing this because of environmental concerns. On today's show, Jenny Engel and her sister, Heather Goldberg, are the founders of Spork-Fed, and they have a number of cookbooks and a business providing great plant-based foods and teaching people how to cook great plant-based foods. Their journey, their pathway to eating plant-based really began because of environmental concerns.
This is Jenny, and we're sisters, so our journey has a long history. But we both were interested in veganism through studying about environmental issues in college, and I actually was vegetarian in high school, so the transition was not necessarily as extreme. Heather kind of dove into vegetarianism for a short while before going vegan in college kind of right away. And, just opening our eyes up to the impact of our food choices on the environment sparked an interest in looking further into where our food came from and the impact that it has on the planet and animals and all of that. And that led us into this lifestyle.
Yeah, we were originally sort of drawn to it from an environmental perspective. We were both environmental science majors in college, separately, Jenny at UC Santa Cruz and myself at San Francisco State University. And so once we started learning about the impact on the environment, then we started looking into it further and decided to go vegan, each with a best friend at the time. We were sort of living this parallel life, just in different places and at different times. So it's pretty wild.
Well, this is really great because I've been vegan now for a couple of decades and really within the last few years, and I actually just did a talk earlier this year. And when I asked the audience, how many people have been eating this way and why they actually started doing this, I was shocked at the number of hands that went up because of environmental concerns. So let's talk a little bit about that because I think that a lot of people aren't aware of the massive impact that eating plant-based can have on the environment. So if you could just share some of your thoughts and some of the reasons why it moved you to start exploring this way to eat.
That's great to hear that so many people are more conscious of their impact on the environment. And I took a class on rainforests and just the degradation of the rainforest for cattle grazing alone, and knowing how much amazing old forests were being cut down just specifically for cattle grazing, and the impact that that had with burning the trees, just the runoff and all of that on the environment was so shocking that it seems undeniable that someone could say, if I'm not eating meat, there's just a direct connection there, just specifically with cattle grazing alone. And then you look into other aspects of the meat and dairy industry. You look into fish farms and how very much the oceans are being affected by these huge farms, genetically modified fish getting into the general population and causing fish populations to decline so rapidly because their reproductive systems aren't developed. I mean, the more layers you peel away of this onion of ours, the more intense it gets and the more undeniable it is that you as one person does have such an impact on the future of our planet.
Yeah, my sister and I both decided after college to go work for an environmental nonprofit organization called Tree People in LA, which we were at for a number of years while we launched our business, Spork Foods. And we were just so passionate about the environmental impact that our food choices have. And we were pretty shocked that in the environmental world we were in, that most people had not made the connection, that it wasn't being dealt with in a way that we felt was impactful, and it wasn't being really dealt with at all. We would go to these gala events for environmental organizations, and they would be serving meat and fish. And, to us, it didn't make any sense that this wasn't being correlated. So we decided that we needed to sort of take matters into our own hands and start teaching vegan cooking classes as a way to get the word out and show people how easy and delicious it could be. Because back when we went vegan 16 years ago, there weren't nearly the amount of options that there are now. So it was just sort of this path that we went on together.
Well, I like that the two of you kind of were exploring these paths at the same time, but working it differently. And you mentioned that you started each with a friend. And can you talk about that, having somebody that you can kind of turn to that's also doing this? And then, of course, with the two of you being sisters and now working together, could you talk a little bit about the support that each one of you gives the other and how that actually helps you to deepen and make your connection to eating plant-based foods?
I think friend, lover, whoever it is, I think definitely having a buddy to support you while you're sort of learning the language of veganism. At first, you go to the market and there's a few things that you've been eating that maybe you can't eat anymore. But bouncing those ideas off someone, finding alternatives together, which is so much easier than it used to be, that's a great way of just buddying up and supporting one another.
And you always want someone to cook for. I mean, what's the point of making delicious vegan food? Great, it's wonderful to feed yourself nourishing food, but it's a lot more fun to have friends and family around to cook for that can enjoy the benefits with you.
Right. And then, we were lucky enough to just sort of have these ideals and have this value system as sisters, which we still can't believe that this is happening. And, as far as being in business together, one of the reasons we started this business was literally to have lunch together every single day. We were, as nice as it is to sit with a bunch of coworkers, we really want to hang out together. And we were inspired by our grandma, who is an identical twin and has lunch with her sister every single day. To this day, that's happening at the current moment. And, we wanted to find a way in this life to do that. I mean, we went to the dentist together last week, it just makes life a little more fun.
Yeah, we have respective families. I have a son, Heather has a bun in the oven, we have husbands, but we do like to hang out.
Here you two are, you're working together. You have a number of parts to your business. So you have a cookbook out, you have another cookbook coming out. You teach and do public cooking where you go into corporations or you go into groups, and you also do catering. This is incredible because you're covering so many different things. So maybe let's first talk about the books. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you've done with the books and what the focus of each of the books is about?
Sure. So Spork-Fed was our first cookbook, and that came out in 2011. And what we were trying to do there was just kind of give the world our most fun recipes that you could make for anyone, whether they're vegan or omnivores, and everyone would just be able to enjoy the food.
And then our cookbook that's launching in September, that's really focused on people who need some really simple, very quick recipes.
Yeah, so, called Vegan 101.
Because we have a cooking school, Vegan 101, that's sort of like your intro class, which ties in really well with our brand and our theme, because teaching is, one of our passions. And like you said, we do have a lot of components to our business, but teaching is one that we just love so much. We teach about 10,000 people a year, both here at our space in West Hollywood, and also we train chefs at universities, corporations, hotels all over the world. So these recipes are recipes we really believe in. And most of our students are not vegan or vegetarian. So we know for sure that people who aren't will enjoy them.
Well, I think a lot of people feel that, or they have that common misunderstanding that cooking vegan, cooking plant-based foods is really complicated, but it's not. And I'm wondering what else you've actually run into as some of the common misunderstandings that your students come into the classroom with.
I think that a lot of people think originally when they're starting out trying to eat more plant-based that they have to purchase all analogs of things that they were familiar with. So instead of thinking of beans as a great source of protein, or lentils or grains, and using food in kind of a different way, at first I think the mindset is very much, I used to eat a hamburger, now I need specifically like a vegan version of that hamburger. So we teach them that you can make burgers out of black beans or red beans, or get really creative with those types of dishes and think of your food and your plate differently than the common construct of protein here, carb here, veggie here.
Yeah, we also focus on the fact that, meat doesn't really have flavor on its own. It's really up to the spices, the vinegars, the oils, the, lemon juice and things like that really give your food a lot of flavor. So if we can sort of think about vegetarian sources of protein like tofu, tempeh, seitan, beans, nuts, grains in that same way, then we're able to sort of shift the mindset and make it a little bit more approachable.
Let's talk a little bit about restaurants. I know that a lot of the listeners, as they're traveling around, they like to try out different vegan and vegan-friendly restaurants, and I'm wondering whether it's in your neck of the woods or when you're traveling around. Do you have a favorite restaurant that each of you could recommend?
In Philadelphia, there is a restaurant called Veg, which has very special, beautiful food if you're looking for something more elegant. And there's Crossroads in LA that's also very elegant. But we love, places that are like a shack that have options depending on where we go. And it's funny you should ask, because in the back of our new cookbook, Vegan 101, we actually have a restaurant section, and we chose different spots from all over the world. So we have, examples from Kyoto, Japan, where we've traveled. We have some in LA, we have Seattle, we have Jamaica, Costa Rica, all of those wonderful spots, because food is so important to us, and we put in a few standouts.
Yeah, so we break it down by fine dining and casual dining restaurants pretty much all over the world. Traveling is a really essential part of keeping us happy as humans. So we travel both together and with our husbands as much as we can. And, owning your own business allows you the flexibility to do that. So we feel very lucky. But we've sort of collected all of these beautiful spots along the way. There's one that we'll mention. We went to Japan and had this really special meal in Kyoto at this temple. And, we talk about that in our cookbook. I mean, there's so many secret spots that we've found and that a lot of other people found. So, yeah, we're hoping that that's a really good resource for your listeners.
When we're traveling around like that, getting to a destination can be fantastic and actually can be really exciting. And it's like, great, I'm here. But those in-between points, those times when you're going to the airport and then traveling, especially if you're traveling overseas, how do you handle that when it comes to eating vegan food along the way?
It's just so easy. I think the hardest place that we've traveled to eat was Cuba. And this was, over 10 years ago. I'm sure things have changed now. But every other spot, if we go to Japan, we can always get an avocado roll. When we go to Greece, we get the Greek salad without cheese. We do take some time to study the language before we leave so that we can ask educated questions. We focus that on, food-related vernacular.
But yeah, even in, LAX, which is, has been known for its shabby food options for quite some time, just got a place called the Blue Window, which is incredible and has tons of vegan options. It's run by Susan Feniger and her chef partner, Sasha Alger, because they have really innovative, delicious vegan options, and that's at Terminal 3 in LAX now. So anytime you're flying out of there, you can get that.
We try to bring some bars with us. We love something called Pistachio Chewy Bites. It's a pistachio cranberry bar that's being held together with brown rice syrup and agave and a tiny touch of sea salt. Anytime we travel, anytime we, even just on a daily basis, running around, we eat them. Yeah, they're called Pistachio Chewy Bites, and they're really good. They satisfy you. I'm not a huge fan of flying, so eating on a plane is not that much fun for me. So these sort of save me on a long plane ride.
Yeah, nuts are just the best thing to bring along because they will satisfy you and get you enough. You'll be sated enough to get to your destination.
Let's talk a little bit about maybe either an app that you find really helpful when traveling or even just everyday use, or an online resource that you often turn to. Do you have one that you could share?
As far as international travel, most times we don't have internet capacity. So we rely on doing some homework at home, internet research, whether it's blogs or Happy Cow, or, we really like reading people's blogs because they talk in detail about these different places. Then when we arrive at those destinations, we'll meet people. That's the other beautiful thing about finding vegan restaurants all over the world. You're going to be meeting like-minded people and making friends with them and possibly having long-lasting relationships, which is something that's happened to us in the past. So it's a beautiful thing. You get to one and you'll find yourself, learning from the locals or learning from other travelers where they've been and the latest amazing thing they've tried. And then sometimes you'll go with them to dinner. So part of the fun for us isn't just the food, but it's the whole culture that surrounds the food and all the different beautiful things that you can learn.
Yeah, I agree. I think that as I've been eating this way and traveling, throughout the years, it really does in many ways almost become a great event just itself in going to these restaurants because of those connections that you make along the way, and then where they can actually point you towards, and off you go and you have this whole new adventure.
Right. Yeah. And it's amazing how no matter where you are, traveling, I was in Sicily recently with my husband and we found the local kind of more hippie veg spot. It was like, oh, my people. And even though they were Sicilians, they're still my people. And it was really fun to just see all over the world where you go. You could be, at a different place and you're like, oh, these people, like there's something that is very nice and connects you no matter where you are.
One secret we learned about traveling is if you hang around a college town, you'll most likely find a vegetarian-friendly spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great advice. And I really like the advice of checking out blogs as well, because I think that can give you some incredible insights into the local area and finding these really hidden places that you might not find on a typical Google search or something like that.
Yeah. I think also social media with hashtags now, you can look up the hashtag vegans of Tokyo, or, vegans of Spain, Barcelona. and you're going to find some amazing stuff that we could not have found before, even on a blog.
Do you have a recipe that you could share?
Sure. What's coming to mind is, because Jenny just brought up Sicily, we were really inspired by the cuisine of Italy. And on the cover of our new cookbook is a dish that we call Spaghetti Chef. And, I think everyone can relate to spaghetti being delicious and spaghetti being easy to make veganized. But what we're doing with this particular dish is we're using almonds as the protein. And my sister will tell you a little bit more about how we do that.
Yeah, so the way that we use the almonds in the dish, in Sicily, they use a lot of nuts in pestos in different ways. And what we did is we pulsed almonds so that it resembles a ground meat kind of texture. And we saute those first with some onion and some different flavors, some fresh thyme, so that they kind of get nice and toasty. And then the sauce is actually a very thick sauce that you're supposed to serve on top of the pasta. So after you boil the pasta, you can run it with a little bit of olive oil. We make a garlic-infused olive oil for the bottom of the plate, and then you serve a nice dollop of your spaghetti chef sauce on top of the plate. And this was inspired by travels that we had when we were in Italy in different parts and in Sicily, because their pasta is an art form, and you don't just necessarily open a can of sauce and, a bag of pasta. You really focus on what the dish means, how you plate it, and how to present it. So that's what we love, and that's the cover dish on our cookbook, and we'd be more than happy to send that over to you.
Thinking ahead to the future right now, if you could kind of jump ahead 3 or 5 years, where do you see your business and the work that you're doing actually going to at that point?
So we have been in the process of creating food products that will be going to market next year. And this has been years and years and years and years in the making. It's one of our little dreams that we're currently living out. So yeah, we see ourselves putting products on shelves. We see ourselves continuing to teach, continuing to educate, doing all sorts of interesting things. From one day to the next, we'll get the craziest phone calls, things that bring us to different places that we could never anticipate. And I think that's part of the fun, going to work and not knowing who's going to leave the message on your voicemail. So we're really open to what lies ahead. We stay true to ourselves. We stay authentic, and we're just going to sort of ride the wave that comes towards us.
Well, this obviously is a show all about, plant-based vegan food, but what you two are doing is really taking that and creating a whole business life for yourself. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what it takes for each of you to do that. What is it like to have this dream that, okay, we love eating this way, we know that it's important, it's making a difference in the world, and we want to actually make it our career? Can you talk about how you two have fallen into those moments where when the phone rings, okay, let's go with this, and how do you really keep yourself going and make this a part of not only your dietary choices, but your vocation and occupation and everything that you do?
That's a great question. I think that whenever in this world you can find what you're passionate about and then also turn that into a way to live every day, you'll feel more fulfilled overall, especially if owning your own business, there are countless hours that go into it. It's not a check-in, check-out sort of thing. We're constantly communicating, whether it's via text, email, phone if we're not together, or just talking. And I think that you have to be so fully committed to your business, whether it's a plant-based business or any other kind. But combining your passion with business allows you to want to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, basically, and not feel like you are sacrificing or disappointed.
So, a lot of people ask us for business advice. I would say we get 5 emails a week from people asking them what they should do in their lives because they're passionate vegans. And what we encourage people to do is look inside themselves. We all have different skills and different talents. What needs to come from within is authenticity. Without that, there's really no point. And we all really need to look at our own assets. Some people are really good at running their own business. Other people want to work for someone and have that security. I'm emailing myself things to do at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, most days of the week. That's great. That works for me. That works for my husband. We're both maniac workaholics. And so, my husband's a filmmaker and he comes and shoots food videos for us. So there's this sort of symbiotic relationship that we have with our husbands and with our business. So we encourage people to do what feels good to them and not to look at what other people are doing.
If the listeners would like to stay in touch with you, what's the best way that they can do that so that they know what you're up to?
Sure. They can check out sporkfoods.com. And all of our contact information is there, including our upcoming class themes, information on catering, information on team building cooking classes or private events. So they can feel free to just reach out to us through our website.
Yeah, and our emails are real easy. It's either Heather@sporkfoods.com or Jenny@sporkfoods.com, so you can get a hold of us.
Well, thank you, both you, Heather, and you, Jenny, for taking the time to share with us this information, because bringing plant-based vegan food into our life is just not only great for the environment, it's great for so many great reasons. And I thank you both for sharing that with all of us.
Oh, we really appreciate the invitation and being a part of your show. Thank you.
At the beginning of the episode, I mentioned that there are different reasons why people will eat plant-based. And ultimately, what matters is that you eat plant-based. And I bring this up now because I've noticed on different public discussion groups online, and I've even seen it in person, people will be sharing that there is a right reason, or there is only one reason why somebody should eat plant-based. And that's not true. And that's a strong judgment that people will come out with. And I just want to say, just to be clear, especially if you're brand new at this, it doesn't matter what others will say. What matters is, why do you want to eat plant-based? You see, the beauty is, whatever reason somebody decides to do this for, they make a difference for all reasons. If you've decided to do this, like today's guests, because of environmental concerns, you still make a huge difference for animals. You reduce the amount of suffering that they have to go through. And of course, for your own health, when you start eating plant-based, you can't help but make a difference for your own health. Well, the same is exactly true if you've decided to do this because you want to make a difference for animals. You do benefit the planet. You do benefit your own health. So when people come across with a strong judgment, I often just let them know, hey, I appreciate that that works for you, but there are many great reasons why someone should do this. And oftentimes for people who are just beginning this journey, you see that kind of judgment and it's like, well, what the heck is going on here? You know, the reality is most people who eat plant-based are absolutely terrific, incredible, compassionate, wonderful people. But occasionally, just as there is with everything out there, there will be a few who will come across very strong with judgments and very strong with opinions. But you don't need to buy into that. You can just simply let them have their opinion and let them know that's not your choice. Hey, good for you. I'm glad that that belief works for you, but I'm doing this for my reason. What ultimately matters, what's most important, is that you're eating plant-based. That is all that really matters. Your reason, your why, your motivation to do this is very important for you. And connecting deeply to that, connecting to it deeply in a positive way, can really take you so much further along your path and your journey to eating plant-based and making it a part of your life. When you truly connect in and touch down deeply into why it is you want to eat this way, and it's much deeper than just, I want to make a difference for my health, I want to make a difference for the planet, I want to make a difference for animals. It goes even further than that. Dive down into that. Really look at, why is that important for you? Why is it important for your health that you eat this way? Why is it important for animals that you eat this way? Why? What is the reason why that it makes a difference for the environment? Touch it as deeply as you can, because there's great richness there. When you connect deeply with why it is you want to do this, it will empower you to continue to stay on your path to eating plant-based. Until the next time we get together, go enjoy some great plant-based food. Take care.